All right, well, welcome here to Out of Bounds. We are on location for this week's episode at John Force Racing in Yorba Linda. He's been on fire from here to Australia. 157 career wins, driving cars that go 300 miles an hour plus. Survived in a horrific crash in Richmond in 2024. He looks amazing. He sounds amazing, just like you remember him when I had him on a few years ago right here on KTLA. We're going to get to know him a little bit more for the next 30 minutes. John Force. I love the line. He actually gave me this line. On fire from here to Australia. His resume is amazing. Don't forget the 16 championships that he's won as well. It has been an incredible career. His family life, he loves everything about what he's accomplished. Talks about his grandkids, a little bit of Elvis as well we're going to get into, as he was a huge Elvis Presley fan. That's coming up right here on Out of Bounds. Well, here we are, John Force, in this beautiful museum here in Yorba Linda. You look amazing. It's been one heck of a last year for you, hasn't it? You look great.
If I can get my wife to say that, I'll be in good shape.
You do, though.
Yeah, she's making me. I'm in the hospital out at Casa Colina. I go back and forth now. Have been for, well, when I first crashed at Richmond, they put me in the hospital there for a couple months, and they didn't think I was going to make it. And then they sent me to Phoenix, Arizona, to get me closer to home. And I spent some months there, and then I finally came home and I went to Casa Colina. So I've been almost living out there. Rehab I got most of the work done, but rehab is my mind. And it's a lot of work. And I was already screwed up as a driver, okay, as a person. So it's like people come in and go, well, he hasn't changed much, has he? But that's just the way I always was, coffeeed up and wired up.
Do you remember the moments leading up to that moment of that crash a year ago?
Yeah, I was racing a young kid, a new up and coming driver, Terry Haddock, and I really liked the guy, and he was in a first round with me, wanting to beat me, and it just everything went wrong. I won the race. I got through the lights, but that's when it dropped cylinders and made a right or a left turn, and it was over the wall. It was ugly, and but I didn't remember nothing. You don't see it. I haven't really looked at the videos unless somebody puts them up.
Yeah.
But I mean, why go back to that? It's the future. Even if I don't drive, and probably won't, but I love the sport. I love NHRA. I love traveling the country, going to a new town every week, and I hate giving it up because it's been my whole life since high school.
I mean, I've met you several years ago, and you haven't changed a bit. Like you wind them up, and right, you know what you're gonna say, and you just keep going.
I've had a career out here 70 years, and probably too old to be driving. And I don't know if the doctors will ever let me drive again. Don't know if I want to. I put my family through a lot of pain. My daughters that drove, they knew the drill, and my wife, and it was like, you got to get well, and that's what I'm striving on. But I'm telling you, maybe the head never gets well. I don't know if a doctor will take me off, but I'm good now. I've got some young drivers that I think they're better than me. You know what I mean?
I don't know how many people can be better than you.
Well, Austin.
And your career, look at your illustrious career, your championships and what you've done. Yeah. I don't think there's many people who can be better than you.
I turned 76 this year, and I didn't know it. I said, 66. No, you're 76. And why are you driving? And I had a lot of doctors tell me that. But I love driving, and it's easy to drive. Recovery's a little timely, but I get through it. But I really love NHRA. I love racing with them.
I mean, you built an empire for what you've done. Like from the kid that grew up doing this.
Yeah, but I never thought about it. I never looked at it. I looked at one thing: get some more race cars, generate some more revenue, take care of the sponsors, take care of the fans. I live with the fans. They're NHRA's wanting to do a deal with me where they put me out on they're going to do Wally Parks is next year, 77. And then I'm the following year, they want to do a whole year of my traveling road show. I've got 18 wheelers that carry a lot of these cars. Can't carry them all, get 6 or 7 in each 18 wheeler, but you can put out different stuff for display. We're still talking about it, okay? And they want to do it though. So these cars, it's funny, I look at every decal and I look at why I love them and what I've been through. And I mean, I got sponsors that I get to call their kids and their wives, you know, for their anniversaries and birthdays. I stay personal with the sponsors, and that's how I keep it afloat. And I take care of them at the races and all that stuff. And I'm a good bull driver, so I can get away with it. I love the fans. I tell them that all the time. They're the ones that get out there and tell them a story. And when you don't win, they still love the stories. And that's why other drivers go, man, I stand out here, I can't get a crowd. You don't do it overnight. You do it over 50 years. And that's how I've learned how to do it. But nobody races this long. You know what I mean?
No one races this long, but you did.
Yeah, and I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And then I get interviews with you. You know what I'm saying? I love your show. I go back in the early days when I used to go to the studio and film some stuff. You know, even if I was standing outside. But I remember you. I haven't lost everything yet, but no. I really enjoy it. I love being in my shop. You guys were good enough to come by, and these guys come in and set up everything. Showing my old cars, I said, I got to show them Peak. I got to show them Cornwell. I got to show them Monster Energy. That's the top fuel car over there, Brittany's World Championship car, and Chevrolet and all the sponsors. That's Auto Club. These guys have been with me forever. So
this car right here, do you remember where you raced this car at?
All over the country. I've raced in Australia. I've been in England. I didn't race in England, but I went there to get an award from their group there. They said I talked too much there too. But man, when I talk about something I really love, you know, I really do. And these cars are my life, and they get me wired up just being around them.
When you're in here and you look at all these cars, is there one memorable car that you've driven that you go, wow, I just remember that car? Well, when you look at you get a lot of cars in here, and you've driven a lot of different cars, but is there one in particular in here?
You always want to love the car that you won the most championships in.
Okay.
But right. I've won, hell, we just ran our 300th race. I've got 17 championships. You get to drive these cars, you make a good living. You know what I mean? All these sponsors, and there's names all over, you know, my race cars, yeah.
You've driven so many races in your life. You're 76.
Yeah.
You look amazing. I keep saying that. Do you remember your first race?
I don't look as good as you.
No, okay, but forget that. Do you remember your first race?
Yeah, I actually went to Orange County trying to get my license. And I had a bad crash down there too. And that was my first weekend. I didn't get my license, but they booked me in Australia. So I loaded it all on an airplane and went to Australia.
As like a teenager?
No, I think I was 21.
21, okay.
Yeah, and I drove truck out of Vernon, California. You know, so I still drive the truck today. But I raced in Australia is where I really got hooked. That car I raced, the Vega, I raced in Australia, Brute Force it was called, and nobody knew who I was, but I was a good talker, and the media loved it. And when I came back to the States, I got a sponsor and I started racing.
So you're fearless. Like to do this, you have to be a little bit though.
Only because I got God on my side. And for some reason, He keeps me alive. He's got a plan for you, and I don't know what it is. And that's why you can't quit. You come in here and look at you look at this place. You have cars that you fall in love with. Like I love this car. I drive it. Was driving it every week, but I was a big fan of Elvis when I was a kid. And I sang Elvis impersonations when I was my grandkids' size, you know, in 3rd or 4th grade. And I think they liked my dancing and stuff more. But I did that for years. So I became a big fan of Elvis, okay? And that's why you see Elvis everywhere in my building. I went to Graceland. They painted a car and I did about 6 cars with Castrol, but with Elvis on it, like my guitar car over there. And I put them in I got one in Graceland. But if you go upstairs, you'll see cars on the roof that are everything from just all kinds of cars and more in Indy. But I did a lot of TV shows. Action wanted to make duplicates of the cars. If you look in those trays, you'll see them over there and upstairs. Hundreds of cars that we did.
Now, have you met Elvis?
Nope.
Never met Elvis?
Elvis died. I got tickets to Elvis. I'd been to Graceland years ago, but I never met him. But I did meet Priscilla. We painted a car, took her and the daughter to the races, and they saw all of that in Dallas. But I got a ticket to go with a few of my guys up to see him in concert. The ticket's in the building.
Oh, wow.
The ticket's here somewhere. My guy will show me where the ticket is for Graceland, but we never used it because he died. They called me and said concerts canceled, or they told us on the news, and he passed. But I wanted to go see him one time, before I killed myself in a race car, and I don't want to die, trust me. So, but in the middle, I never got to see him, but then I got with Action Collectibles, and they started duplicating. Hundreds of cars are over there, trucks, trailers. You wouldn't believe all the stuff. And so, see,
But it's amazing though. I'm going to get your thoughts on how you became a fan of Elvis after this on Out of Bounds right here on KTLA Plus. So hold that thought.
Okay.
All right, welcome back. Here we are. We're with John Force, Out of Bounds here on KTLA Plus, and so I want to go back to Elvis. What did you love about Elvis? You never met him. Did you have the moves? Were you like dance? Did you just love his music?
I never had any moves, and I couldn't sing, but I loved to, and I did impersonations. Thank you very much. I did all of that. I even sang songs because I knew how to turn his voice a little bit, but I wasn't close. I'm not trying to kid nobody, but I just fell in love in watching him on the Ed Sullivan Show. That's how far back I go. That was before Johnny Carson. But then,
that is before Johnny Carson.
Yes. But no, I just loved his music. It turned me on. It motivated me to go to work. I'd sit in my car for hours listening to the music on the radio, in the old days. And it just became a way of life. So, I've done the Three Stooges. You'll see some of the cars here. The car in the lobby my daughter drove is Taylor Swift, and I did the cars, but I get to keep them because I owned them, and she don't want it. You know what I'm saying? But it's got the name of her songs and stuff. So I did a lot of stuff, and if you go upstairs, if you walk out, you'll see them on the roof. And I hung them in the roof because I had nowhere to put them. And then I put cars in Indy, and that's my big stuff.
Were you a daredevil? You battled sickness, but when you're a little, were you a daredevil a little bit?
No, I really wasn't.
To get in a car like this speed is just amazing to me.
No, but the Beaver brothers in Condit, they raced, and I wanted to be like them, and I wanted to play football. I went to East LA Junior College, and I made the team up there, but I dropped out of school later because I didn't have any money. But my uncle said, "You're up there running around in a football game, and you're fair." I was a quarterback, and in Bell Gardens High, I quarterbacked for years. We lost every game. I still hold that record. Lost every game as a quarterback, and I had more head concussions there. Every time I'd get hit, I was on the sidelines laying, then I'd go back in the game. But at East LA, I wasn't ever going to be a professional, but my uncle said, "You need to get a race car to do the running for you, because you don't need to be out there on a football field where a guy can beat you up," and that's when I went racing.
So how do you go from that and being a race car driver and doing drag racing instead of what people would say, racing around an oval? How do you go not want to do that versus this?
Because you only go straight. You don't make left turns unless you're on fire. That's just the way it works. And my uncle said, if you get a race car and the way you talk, you'll find money. And he said, if you do, you can hire the people that'll make you a champion. And that's what I did. And understand, I've raced out here. I graduated from high school in '67, and that's when I started racing. And I went to Australia then. I was driving a truck out of Vernon, and so I knew how to drive the trucks and trailers to get them to where they needed to go. Hell, I never even stayed in hotels. I just lived in the truck. You know, it was a way of life, had big sleepers and all that stuff. And I loved trucks because my dad and brothers, one was a LA sheriff, Walker, but Louis was truck driver, you know. And so I learned how to get around, how to make the stuff. I loved designing cars. I was never a great artist, but I learned how to design them and get all the names where they work. So, you know, I've already written the book on me, but it never ends. It just keeps going another year, and they're saying now, can we finish it now? I said, not till I know it's official.
I mean, here you are. Okay, so when you're doing this back in the day, starting out, were there any other, like, we'll call them the circuits, right, that they were trying to recruit you to go make left-hand turns all the time?
Yeah, I raced for AHRA in the big days, in the early days, because they gave me a guarantee. That's American Hot Rod Racing. Okay. This is NH, National Hot Rod, and there's IHRA, which I knew the guy that became
now
president.
that was what people would think is left-hand racing, like going around.
No,
it was always straight.
No, the only time.
But was there ever like with like NASCAR? Did they ever try to recruit you to come, like Richard Petty and all these guys?
No, I was a straightaway guy.
Straight away.
Yeah, but I went to the driving school in Rockingham.
Okay. Yep. Right. Oh yeah, the big old NASCAR place.
And I went there, and I drove, you know, not a regular NASCAR, but it looks just like one.
Yep.
And they put me through the school, and they joked that you ran quick enough to qualify at Daytona. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they said. But I loved driving them. I raced go-karts. I did all that stuff. I raced motorcycles growing up, and crashed all the time, never got hurt. And but this thing, maybe I've stayed in the seat too long. That's what I'm trying to debate. And maybe I won't. Maybe the doctors won't let me go back. But I love it. I drove dragsters in the early days, but never did nothing with them. Funny car was my way because I could paint signs on them and I could get money. And that's why I stayed with the funny car. So when you look at the cars that I love the Elvis cars. You know what I'm saying? I love my, 17-time champ funny cars. You know what I'm saying? I got some of those out back. I've got my early cars that I kept from the early days. I went and bought 6 or 7 of them back and repainted them to make them look just like they did because I want to keep the history. And I got my grandkids' dragsters out here and their trucks and trailers. So I've done this for almost my whole life, and before that I dreamed about it.
Your family's in the racing business just like you. Are you like the grandfather's like, maybe you guys shouldn't do this, or because it's so dangerous, or no? Do you ever think about that, or no?
Yeah, with my daughters driving.
Yeah, your daughters too.
Being girls.
Yep.
You break an arm, you have to live with that, and then my grandchildren, Jacob and Noah, they're like 7 or 8. They're just in grade school, and Jacob has won. I got a deal over there with trophies and everything, where he won them. And then Noah ran the 4-wide at Vegas, okay, and ended up winning it. But he was out there like, how do I leave with all these lights? Should I have 4 lanes, 4 different cars? He says, how do I leave? And I said, all you got to do is relax and just do what you do. Step on the gas, and that's kind of what we do, and we love it. And I've talked only about a little bit of stuff. I haven't talked. We need a 1-hour special.
We need a 1-hour special.
Yeah.
If you had to talk about one main subject, and I have not asked that yet, because this is like we're just going back and forth here. Yeah. What would that question you would want me to ask you? That you have so much to talk about. Like, what is one focal point?
Well, people tell me, you know you love racing, but it isn't just driving a car at 330 miles an hour. It's about watching my girls, watching them evolve, watch the young drivers that I put in. And I've made every stupid mistake you can do, and people, my brother, I went to college, I got degrees, and then I see you come along and you don't have a clue, and you go out and turn it into a
Multi-million-dollar
Yeah.
operation.
And
Think about that.
I don't know
From a
how.
kid that went to Australia and look where today. Look what you built.
I starved
An
to death.
empire.
Yeah.
A racing empire.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't want to give it up because first of all, just to pay the tax, I own everything.
Right.
Yep. I own a big house on the mountain. I bought 25
But you
acres.
don't need to give it up. You got your family involved. It's an
Yeah,
empire.
but
John, you built an empire.
I got to keep working, or it falls apart. You just to pay the taxes and I got rentals here. I got rentals in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah. So what is Thanksgiving table like in your family? You sit at the head of the table and they wind you up and you just tell stories. In a great way, though. You have so much energy.
Yeah, but I used to do that, and then my wife got tired of hearing me. Okay, then my kids got tired of hearing me. Now the grandkids go, here he goes again, to shut me up. But our family, we get together, we try to enjoy holidays. We go to our place in Tahoe at Christmas, but I've lived on the road. I haven't been home for the last, my wife kicked me out.
Your whole life, like your whole adult life, you're every weekend.
Yeah, my wife kicked me out of the house for months. She said, why don't you go out there and live? And she loves me, and she's worried about me making it. She said, you haven't taken a year hardly to rest, because I got to stay down here and watch it grow. I love this place. So anyway, we've been going over budgets, how to make it financially. Because this ain't easy. I'm chasing new sponsors. If anybody's out there, don't forget me, John Force.
Right there, John Force, the new sponsor, right?
Yeah. And me, I should have looked at that about having a life. And now I'm trying to raise my kids, but it's kind of hard when you were so busy making a living to feed them and put shoes on them and get them to high school and get them to college. You worked so hard for that, it became a way of life, and you just thought you were raising them. And then one day my wife goes, you never raised them. My daughter even said, you never raised us, Mom did. She did all the cheerleading, all the stuff. And then I put them in funny cars and made them world champions. So
and that's a perfect scenario. That's what you did. You were out there racing, making a living, and you had your wife and their mom building their life for them. So it's no different than any other professional athlete. Because professional athletes are entertainers, right? Making a living doing something as an athlete, and it's nights and weekends, right? You got a lot of weekends on the road.
Yeah, so let's negotiate. When do I get to go on your other show?
Well, you're on it right now, Out of Bounds.
Oh, I'm on it now. Out of Bounds.
We just did it, Out of Bounds.
Out
There
of
you go,
Bounds.
John Force. We appreciate you coming on.
That's what they call me, the announcers, when I cross the center line. He's out of bounds. He's out of here.
And that's how we can end this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a little bit more left in this edition of Out of Bounds with John Force. Coming up, my final thoughts. Stay tuned. And so there you go. The man, John Force. He can talk with the best of them. One of the best people you will ever meet in professional sports. And I have met certainly a ton of people doing what I've done, but he is a class act. His stories, I think, like you said, we could just go on for hours doing this show Out of Bounds. We only have so much time, but nonetheless, we got a chance to hear and see him in an amazing light here in Yorba Linda. For now, with another edition of Out of Bounds, I'm David Pingerlow.